Prime Minister's questions.
Member for Vancouver South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Prime Minister, given the Prime Minister's public commitment of a thorough investigation into the recent incident in which 3 persons were killed and 3 persons were injured in an alleged gun battle between Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and residents of Big Yard, Carenage, could the Prime Minister inform this House when will the investigation into the said incident commence?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, if my colleague from Vancouver South was so noticeable and caring about the people of Carenage and Big Yard, he would have heard the Commissioner of Police in response to this very question say that an investigation has already commenced and that an officer who is named has been put in charge of the required investigation. So I know of no reason why this question should be before the House today.
Supplemental member for Vancouver South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, given the concerns of the residents of Carenage about the independence of the inquiry, could the Prime Minister, as head of the National Security Council, inform this House who is the officer that will be leading this investigation?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, an officer, Samaru, has been identified by the authorities in the police service, and I expect that given the nature of the incident, that following the appropriate protocols, that the Police Complaints Authority would get involved, and that this investigation is not unique, but we expect that it would be done in a way that would be covered by the laws of Trinidad and Tobago.
Member for Vancouver South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, given the recent loss of a full electricity supply at the San Fernando General Hospital, could the Prime Minister inform this House if all electrical systems, including the supply of power at our nation's hospitals, have been reviewed?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I have no information that all electrical systems in all hospitals have been reviewed, and there's actually, I know of no incident that would require that all electrical systems in all hospitals be reviewed. What I do know is that there's an ongoing arrangement of maintenance and observation, and insofar as electrical issues arise, they'll be dealt with in a professional manner by the professionals in the Ministry of Health, and that is what I'm aware of.
Supplemental member for Vancouver South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So is the Prime Minister telling this House that given what happened at the San Fernando General Hospital on the 25th of April 2019 is not important to warrant a review of all the systems from an electrical point of view at our nation's public hospitals?
Stop.
Madam Speaker, the authorities at the various hospitals, which are physical buildings quite unconnected across the country, from Tobago to Arima to Port Fort and San Fernando, the protocols for maintenance of electrical supplies and service are in place and being observed by the professionals within the Ministry of Health, Madam Speaker, and there's no panic station. And as a matter of fact, Madam Speaker, in response to this kind of approach being advocated, that the Ministry of Health had already indicated how San Fernando was dealt with, what the nature of the problem was, and there's no need for panic stations.
Supplemental member for Naparima.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Is the Prime Minister not concerned that the backup generators didn't function, which put lives of citizens at risk? And at least in the maintenance schedule that you described, there ought to be an assurance that there's a backup capability.
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, that is precisely what I speak to when I speak about the professionals ensuring that electrical supplies and services are available and that the systems are acceptable.
Member for Barataria-Sanwan, supplemental.
Prime Minister, supplemental. Are you saying that the professionals are now there seeing about it and it weren't there in the past?
Prime Minister.
I am not saying that at all. This happened many, many days ago and have been responded to a long time ago. This is old news.
Supplemental member for Vancouver South.
Madam Speaker, could the Prime Minister assure this House and by extension the nation that in relation to the generators at our public hospitals, the fuel supply will be guaranteed to last, God forbid, days rather than hours in a particular situation?
I'm not going to allow that as a supplemental question. Member for Point of Peer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 3 to the Prime Minister. Given the recent reports that Shell and Heritage Exploration Limited have signed a memorandum of understanding for a possible joint venture, could the Prime Minister state the process which was adopted to select Shell as a partner in this joint venture?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, the process is the same one that I met when I became Prime Minister and that this government came into office. That Shell was in partnership with Petrotrin. Contrary to the insinuation of this question, it is good for the public to be aware that Petrotrin and Shell are in an ongoing partnership of long standing, Shell having bought the assets of BG, as a result of which that partnership sees Petrotrin and Shell operating the Hibiscus platform and owning and operating the pipeline from the NCMA to Point Lisas, to Point 14. This MOU to work with Petrotrin on a matter of seismic observations and exploration potential of the southwestern peninsula, Soldado Field or elsewhere, is simply a continuation of that partnership which exists as a result of Shell buying the assets of British Gas.
Member for Point of Peer.
Question number 4 to the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister.
Given the recent reports which stated that Petrotrin made a profit after tax of 1.6 billion TT dollars in its last year of operation, could the Prime Minister confirm the validity of these reports and specifically state what was the profit of Petrotrin in its last year of operation?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, much as I would like to assist my colleague in getting the information he seeks, I would be very appreciative if he could identify any particular report to which this question refers.
Supplemental member for Point of Peer.
Madam Speaker, the supplementary to the Prime Minister, the report was stated in the media that Petrotrin made a profit before tax of $1.6 billion. It was stated throughout the media, and that was the report.
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, if the media reports, the unspecified media report is the basis of this question, I simply want to tell my colleague from Point of Peer that that is simply spreading misinformation, and he's well aware that the government documents and the parliamentary reports covering Petrotrin's operations are not to be found in misinformation in the media. Madam Speaker, the only reports that I know of is that Petrotrin showed a loss operation in the last year of its operations and the year before. And we have spoken at length about Petrotrin's loss-making arrangements in this House and outside of it. And Madam Speaker, the situation with Petrotrin's last year accounts as of today, those audited accounts are not available to the board as yet. So I don't know what could be the possible source of any information that is credible about Petrotrin having made a profit of 1.6 billion. This is misinformation and political mischief, because what it's trying to do is to make the political case being made by the UNC that there was no reason to close the refinery because the company was making a profit. That is misinformation and political mischief.
Member for Point of Peer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Prime Minister, it was stated in the media with the CEO of Heritage Petroleum that this $1.6 billion in profit before tax was used as a tool for the CEO in presenting to the international arena in refinancing the bonds of Petrotrin.
Question.
Madam Speaker, just for your benefit, because stick break in the ears, right? Petrotrin did not make a profit of $1.6 billion in 2018. The reported $1.6 billion applies only to the exploration and production side of the company. It does not take into account the massive losses of the refinery or payments of royalties, financing, payments, depreciation, etc. With all of these things are taken into account, Petrotrin made a huge loss in 2018. And that is the fact.
Supplemental. Member for Tabakit.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Honourable Prime Minister, could the Prime Minister inform this House whether the government intends to complete the segment of the highway from David to Mondesi, and if so, what is the time frame for completion of the same?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, at this time, and for the last 2 years and 2.5 years, the government has been focusing on the primary purpose of that highway, which was to get a main artery going from north to south all the way to Point 14. The spur off into Mondesi and into Debe Mondesi is not the main route of the artery to Point 14. On restarting this project, the resources and the effort have been focused on getting the highway to Point 14. On completion of that, Madam Speaker, we will then turn our attention to other spurs off the main route. We are back to the original program, which is to build a main highway from San Fernando directly to Point 14.
Member for Caroni East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Honourable Prime Minister, could the Prime Minister inform the House from whom have the major portions of land been acquired and at what costs for the construction of the Valencia to Toco Highway?
Stop.
Madam Speaker, the major portions of lands to be acquired, if and where lands are to be acquired for the Valencia to Toco Highway, have not been undertaken at this time. The process is underway to get to that stage. But what I want to tell my colleague from Caroni East, the one thing that you could be assured of is that major or minor acquisition on this highway, the taxpayers can rest assured that there will be no squandermania and lawyer enriching as happened on the highway from San Fernando to Point 14 that happened under the last government, where land acquisition was one of the source of rape of the treasury in Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you. Would the Prime Minister give this House the assurance that none of his parliamentary colleagues will benefit from the acquisition of these lands, even at this stage?
I mean, unlike that?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, what I can guarantee is that none of my parliamentary colleagues, whoever they might be, wherever they might have property, will be treated as differently from other citizens whose property might be acquired. But I tell you, we will not set out as a government to undertake administration in such a way as to deliberately benefit members of this House. If he knows of members of this government who have land to be acquired, he's a better informed man than I am. I know of no such instance. But I'll tell you one thing. It is not the policy of this government to continue the policy of the last government, where members of the government and their friends use land acquisition to enrich themselves, and when I stop on that.
Member for Urukuch East.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the Prime Minister for the disclosures. Could the Prime Minister indicate, I heard something about the rape, but I didn't understand what you were talking about, but you may know about that. Could you indicate whether the lands would be by compulsory acquisition or private treaty or a mix of both?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, that is a question which I cannot answer at this time because we deal with the policy is to use the Land Acquisition Act, but on a case-by-case arrangement, there may be instances where private treaty is used, but private treaty will not be used to bring about the rape of the treasury, if that's what you don't understand. Rape of the treasury is something that everybody understands in this country.
Member for Naparima. Order. Member for Naparima.
Would the Prime Minister give the assurance that if rape or no rape, that a member of cabinet stands to gain, that he will recuse himself from the discussions of cabinet.
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, that is standard protocol observed by this government under this administration. That is standard practice to be expected. If there's a conflict at the point of the decision making, every member, not only in this house, but public officers or any other citizen, wherever there's a conflict, one is required to recuse oneself from the decision making. This government observes that protocol.
Member for Caroni East.
Standing Order 48-4. Madam Speaker, Standing Order 48-4. The Prime Minister is obsessed with this rape and rape and rape. And it is unparliamentary to speak like this.
Member for Caroni East.
I wanted a supplemental, Madam Speaker? Yes. Yes. Would the Prime Minister indicate, since you made the statement that no land has been acquired so far, the 400 million for the cost of the highway, would that be separate from the acquisition of properties?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I am not sure what he's talking about because he's not specific. Throwing out a figure of 400 million, I don't know what he's talking about. And if he's more specific, I might be able to assist.
Member for Caroni East. The question has been answered. New question.
To clarify, Madam Speaker, so I'm clarifying my question.
Member for Caroni East. We move on to the next question, please.
I thought he was asking for a clarification. Question number 7 to the Prime Minister. Could the Prime Minister state why there has been no forensic audit into the widely reported AV drilling oil issue with Petrotrin?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, this is yet another attempt by my colleagues to confuse the public. You may recall, Madam Speaker, that upon their platform shouts about AV drilling, Petrotrin, which is the company that was responsible for public assets in this particular matter, conducted thorough investigations using foreign expertise, more than one level, produced a body of information, all of which the nation was advised through this parliament has been placed into the possession of the Director of Public Prosecution to determine whether any wrongdoing took place and who is accountable. Petrotrin concluded this process not only by using the technical expertise, but senior counsel to collate and respond to the allegations. And all of those matters, all of those documentation, all of those reports are in the possession of the Director of Public Prosecution. And I want to add, Madam Speaker, contrary to what is being said by my colleagues on the other side, this particular matter is currently in arbitration between AV Drilling and Petrotrin, where contractual liabilities are to be determined, Madam Speaker. And I wish that they could keep the platform talk outside of the House and let the public understand how the public business is being held with. AV Drilling and Petrotrin are to arbitrate over liabilities within the contract of that arrangement. And if there's any criminal conduct, that is in the hands of the Director of Public Prosecution at this time.
The member for Napari.
Prime Minister, that you seem to be intimately involved in the discussions and the arbitration. If this came to cabinet, would you recuse yourself? Would you recuse yourself from discussions because the person is your friend?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, the first thing, I want the record to be clear. I never said about being involved in any form with any arbitration. All I have mentioned for the public benefit, those who believe that somebody has something to answer for with AV drilling, just let the public know that Petrotrin and AV drilling are arbitration where matters are to be determined as to who owes who what. That's a fact. Has nothing to do with me. And secondly, if my colleague from Naparima knows of any reason why I should recuse myself in this matter as head of this government, get up and say so in this House. And better still, come outside and say it in silence.
Member for Caroni East supplemental. Member for Caroni East supplemental. Order, please.
Honourable Prime Minister, with the dissolution of Petrotrin, could you, with what you just said, give some undertaking that circumstantial evidence would still be available for the Director of Public Prosecutions to work with, or some of the evidence would have been destroyed as a result of the dissolution of Petrotrin?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker,
Petrotrin was not dissolved.
Petrotrin has not been dissolved. We have told this country, contrary to the confusion being created by our colleagues on the other side, Petrotrin still exists as the company with all the legacy items of the original company. So all matters of this and similar nature, which Petrotrin was involved in the creation of the new companies, those matters remain with Petrotrin. They are called legacy items. Preserved. And I simply want to say that they are preserved for all actions which would have been taken even if we had not restructured the company. And I want to also point out that the same DPP who conducted his business the way he had done last week and is doing it today and going forward is the same DPP that has in his possession all the information concerning this matter. And that I say to the public. And I simply want to ask the public to disregard my colleagues on the other side who seem to have a different story.
For Oropuchi supplemental.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Prime Minister, with respect to your clear distinction between the matter being subject of arbitration for contractual liabilities and so on the one hand, and receiving the attention of the DPP and other law enforcement for criminal action on the other hand, would the Prime Minister indicate whether the government will also be prepared to hire first-in-class forensic experts out of the United Kingdom to also investigate and assist law enforcement on the AV drilling fake oil matter?
Madam Speaker, I don't know what they're so jumpy about, you know. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has already done that and put within the police service the competence and expertise to treat with this and all other matters. And this is the first time that that has happened in this country. And that may very well be the source of his unease.
Supplemental member for Naparimo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, the decision by the board to enter into arbitration with AV drilling, was that taken without reference to the line minister? The decision to enter into discussions without reference to the line minister or the cabinet of Trinidad and
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, that question defies an understanding of logic and truth. AV drilling and Petrotrin are in a contractual arrangement. The decision to go into arbitration is not a capricious matter requiring the minister. AV drilling initiated under the terms of the contract arbitration proceedings which Petrotrin under law is cooperating with. This is a contract between two parties. And contrary to the mischief that you all have been making, these are the facts. And facts are stubborn things. This is not being created on this side, on this government, you know. The contract requires arbitration triggered by one party. And if you know another route, then get up and say so.
Member for Caroni Central.
Question to the Honourable Prime Minister. Could the Prime Minister inform this House whether he is in agreement with the invasion of citizens' private properties by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service without the provision of search warrants as reported by some homeowners?
Prime Minister.
Once again, I want to draw the attention of my colleague to the statement made by the Commissioner of Police, who is the authority governing the conduct of police investigations and police officers on investigations. Madam Speaker, it is not for me to intervene in the police work with respect to specific matters of law enforcement on matters which the Commissioner has said at the appropriate time he will clarify for the public. But let me say this. Provision is made for entry into premises by way of warrant. But there's also provision being made for police to conduct their police work under existing law where a warrant may not be necessary at the point in time when a particular action is being taken. And I would simply ask my colleague to await the details of the Commissioner of Police and don't invite me into the policing from which the executive is excluded.
Supplemental, member for Garden Central.
I appreciate the Prime Minister's response, but as you know, the Commissioner of Police is still subject to a Minister of National Security.
Is that the question?
No, I'm preambling
All right, so,
my question.
okay, ask the question, please.
And what I am concerned about, you're having said that there are alternatives besides a warrant, whether there was a legal basis on which the police entered the property.
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, what is my colleague inviting me into? My colleague is an experienced member of government. He must know the limit within which the executive can intrude into law enforcement at the personal operational level. The Constitution provides. There is clear route where the police can act or cannot act. And to protect the citizenry, there's a provision where warrants are sought on cases presented. But that is not the only way the police can act under specific circumstances protected under existing law. It is quite wrong for my colleagues to go out there and tell the population that we have created new law allowing this to happen. Madam Speaker, this is mischief of the worst kind, creating hurt in our population, and I appeal to my colleagues to stop doing what you are doing.
Supplemental, member for Caroni East. Member for Caroni East.
Honourable Prime Minister, as head of National Security Council, are you comfortable in your own mind that 7 homes have been invaded without any evidence of any warrant whatsoever? Are you comfortable in your own mind?
I won't allow that as a supplemental question. It is the question that has been originally asked. Member for Naparima, supplement.
Is the Prime Minister not concerned that the timing of these raids so close to an election could give the impression to right-thinking citizens that they are political?
Prime Minister.
So stop law enforcement.
Madam Speaker, I simply want to give my colleague from Naparima and all his colleagues on the other side the assurance that no aspect of law enforcement in Trinidad and Tobago is governed by any election or perceived election. Law enforcement is 24/7 every day of the year in this country. And if you have, there's no timetable about elections. And like once again, it is mischievous to be countenancing and putting it out that law enforcement in Trinidad and Tobago is governed by elections.
All of a sudden.
Madam Speaker, as far as I'm aware, we are under criminal attack in this country from the criminal element, and it has nothing to do with the election date. It has to do with law enforcement under the country's constitution. And the people who are to do that, do so under the expectation that they'll protect and serve. It is mischievous to be talking about elections.
These are questions approved by the Speaker. Member for Oropuchis, kindly take a seat. Member for Caroni Central, supplemental. Excuse me.
Did
One
I?
minute. Excuse me. Excuse. I have not recognized you, member for Caroni East. Member for Digum. Just 1 minute, please. Member for Digo Martin, notice, I heard that. I would ask you, since it's early, one, to get up, withdraw and apologize, and secondly, hereafter, try your best to contain those outbursts. Prime Minister and all members, Prime Minister and all members, it may be very difficult for us sometimes to contain ourselves, but in here, we have to summon all our strength.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I apologize and withdraw that remark.
So, member for Caroni Central.
Yes, Prime Minister, did I understand you to mean that whatever was done with these homes in South Trinidad were done under existing law? I'm asking the Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I do not the Commissioner of Police has indicated that he would speak to this matter and clarify these concerns at the appropriate time. Madam Speaker, as Prime Minister, I cannot go beyond that because I do not have any new or additional information. What I do know, that I'm not in a position to say that anything was done that was illegal. So therefore, I have to conclude that the police has acted under existing law. I also said it was wrong for my colleagues, one of whom has said that it is new law made by this government which has resulted in this situation. Correct. And I'm saying that is not correct. That's all I'm saying.
Honourable members, the time for Prime Ministerial questions is now spent.